Okay, getting everything ready. All right, today we're going to start with section 2 of chapter 1. It's entitled Revelation, Time, and Miracles. All right. So let's see what it says. Revelation induces complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. It reflects the original form of communication between God and his creations, involving the extremely personal sense of creation sometimes sought in physical relationships. Physical closeness cannot achieve it. Miracles, however, are genuinely interpersonal and result in true closeness to others. Revelation unites you directly with God. Miracles unite you directly with your brother. Neither emanates from consciousness, but both are experienced there. Consciousness is the state that induces action, though it does not inspire it. You are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attests to what you believe. All right. So basically, revelation, as he says, the original form of communication between God and his creations, which is you and me, as one mind, as one son. All right. And it's the constant emanating of love and giving and receiving of love. I mean, he even says words can't really describe, they can't describe it. All right, so we just take it for granted that revelation is the original form of communication. All right. Physical closeness cannot achieve it. And we'll see later on that we have this impulse to join with bodies, right? In one way or another, whether it's groups, whether it's sexual, whether it's any form of contact that we have with bodies. We try to get closer to people, all right? He said, but that's an impulse because we think there's something lacking. We think there's some union that's lacking. Remember that, all right? We always think that there's something wrong, there's something lacking, there's something missing, all right? But he says physical closeness cannot achieve it. His miracles, on the other hand, are genuinely interpersonal, and they result in true closeness to others. So the miracle, succinctly put, is the change in perception. So now I have a change in my perception of you, because the ego would automatically put me on the defense, and I see you, and all of a sudden I say, oh, that's a separate individual. We're different. And I start seeing differences, and I start judging those differences. Right? And so there's the separation grows. The separation grows. Now, if I ask to have my perception changed, I'm willing to see, right? Above all else, I want to see, as the lesson says. Right? All of a sudden, my perception of you, my interpretation of you, is founded in that peace of mind. It's founded in that state of being where there's invulnerability, so to speak. So I don't have to worry. And so the interpersonal relationship allows me to get closer to you, to recognize our oneness, to recognize that we're all in the same boat. At least we could start there. All right? We could start to see that no matter what your feelings are for other human beings or specific human beings, if we get tired of projecting the guilt and the hatred and the anger and, you know, the suspicion, whatever. You get tired of that after a while. We can at least, we can ask for help, because we need help to get out of this state of mind that we're in, this condition, so to speak. All right? And we can at least start to realize that we're really all in the same condition. We really need to escape from this chaos and conflict that swirls around us. So what the miracle does, in the very beginning at least, it helps us to at least realize that everybody has the same need, and that is to awaken from this conflict, escape from this conflict, so to speak. All right? So in that sense, we begin to get that feeling that we're united in that. Right? And from that, with our persistence in asking for help and getting our perceptions changed, right? It grows and grows from that little sense of unity to begin with, and then we start to realize more and more about the other, and that brings us closer, right? Because sooner or later I will realize that I am you. And you are me. All right. I'm going to break into a Beatles song in a minute now. Okay. So he says, neither the revelation nor the miracle emanates from consciousness. All right. And it's a different use of the word consciousness than is in vogue these days with a man such as Eckhart Tolle, however you want to pronounce that. I think the correct is Tolle. But he'll use consciousness in a different way. He'll use consciousness to describe the awakening, to be awake, right? To realize what reality is, and to realize what our place in the universe is, our place in the world, our function. Right? That, to Eckhart, is consciousness, I believe. All right? But here in the Course, both are experienced here in consciousness. That means being in this world, actually. Being aware of duality. So, consciousness is the state that induces action, though it does not inspire it. You are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attests to what you believe. Right? All our actions, everything we do, everything we say, is based on either our belief in separation from our Creator, our belief in separation from God, our belief in the separation from the oneness, or the belief that we haven't separated, that realization that I am united with my Creator. All right? So there's two thought systems, and what I do attests to what I believe. Okay? Let's look at paragraph 2. Revelation is intensely personal and cannot be meaningfully translated. This is why any attempt to describe it in words is impossible. Revelation induces only experience. Miracles, on the other hand, induce action. They are more useful now because of their interpersonal nature. In this phase of learning, working miracles is important because freedom from fear cannot be thrust upon you. Revelation is literally unspeakable because it is an experience of unspeakable love. Remember when we first started, she just says that revelation is the original form of communication. Later on, as the writing in the course gets more beautiful, more poetic, Jesus will speak about the song that the Father sings to the Son and the Son sings to the Father. That's the communication, the original communication. All right? And it's indescribable, and it's so intense. All right? So, he says miracles right now are more useful because they'll get us to that position, get us to that realization. All right? He says they induce action. All right? And the action they induce, so to speak, is to choose, the choice. All right, to get to choose. All right, and then if I need to do something, I will have the idea of what I need to do, or if I need to say something, all right, the words will be there. All right. So the miracles induce action because we fully believe that we are in this world with other beings, okay? And we need to change our perspective about these other beings and the world itself. Right? And he says revelation is literally unspeakable, and it removes all fear. He says, but this can't be thrust upon you. Right? All of a sudden you can't be just overwhelmed. Like Jesus can't come in and turn the switch and say, okay, right? This is what God is. Okay, so it's kind of too much at this point. All right. So, because he says awe, all right, something that's awesome. All right. He says awe should be reserved for revelation, to which it is perfectly and correctly applicable. It is not appropriate for miracles, because a state of awe is worshipful, implying that one of a lesser order stands before his Creator. You are a perfect creation and should experience awe only in the presence of the Creator of perfection. The miracle is therefore a sign of love among equals. Equals should not be in awe of one another, because awe implies inequality. It is therefore an inappropriate reaction to me, Jesus is saying to Helen. An elder brother is entitled to respect for his greater experience and obedience for his greater wisdom. He is also entitled to love because he is a brother, and to devotion if he is devoted. It is only my devotion that entitles me to yours. There is nothing about me that you cannot attain. Right? This is Jesus speaking to Helen and to us through the book and through Helen. He says, there's nothing about me that you cannot attain. Right? So the difference between us now is that I have nothing else, right? He says, I have nothing that does not come from God, and neither do you. He says, I have nothing that does not come from God, right? The difference between us now is that I have nothing else, right? So what Jesus has is just whatever comes from God, and that is that indescribable emanation of love. Right. And he says, this leaves me in a state which is only potential in you. Right. So each of us has the potential of being in the same state as Jesus. Right. And what we're doing, according, if we're following the course, or whatever spiritual teaching that you're following, is we're as the Course says, undoing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. So we're undoing the blocks to revelation. All right? And he says, so that state of being in love and knowing it is only a potential in us, but in Jesus it's fully realized. And he says, oh, look, I'm like your brother. I'm an elder brother, right? Don't make me special. Don't put me up on a pedestal, all right? Because that really, it does give birth to resentments and, how come he got it and I didn't, He says, everybody got it. You just don't realize it yet. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to help you realize that you got it. Okay? Paragraph 4. And we get a New Testament quote here. I believe it's from John. I have written in my little notes here, John 14:6. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. It does not mean that I am in any way separate or different from you, except in time. And time does not exist. Well, he says time does not really exist. The statement is more meaningful in terms of a vertical rather than a horizontal axis. He says, you stand below me, and I stand below God. In the process of rising up, I am higher because without me, the distance between God and man would be too great for you to encompass. I bridge the distance as an elder brother to you on the one hand, and as a son of God on the other. My devotion to my brothers has placed me in charge of the sonship, which I render complete because I share it. This may appear to contradict the statement, I and my Father are one, but there are two parts to the statement in recognition that the Father is greater. Revelations are indirectly inspired by me because I am close to the Holy Spirit and I am alert to the revelation readiness of my brothers. I can thus bring down to them more than they can draw down themselves. The Holy Spirit mediates higher to lower communication, keeping the direct channel from God to you open for revelation. Revelation is not reciprocal. It proceeds from God to you, but not from you to God. The miracle minimizes the need for time. In the longitudinal or horizontal plane, the recognition of the equality of the members of the sonship appears to involve almost endless time. Right? He's saying it seems to be like for me to recognize the equality of all people, it's going to take forever. All right, so I mean that's basically what he's saying. It appears to involve almost endless time. He says, however, the miracle entails a sudden shift from the horizontal to the vertical perception. In other words, we're not looking far into the future. We're realizing the present moment, right now. So this introduces an interval from which the giver and receiver both emerge farther along in time than they would otherwise have been. The miracle thus has the unique property of abolishing time to the extent that it renders the interval of time it spans unnecessary. There is no relationship between the time a miracle takes and the time it covers. The miracle substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. It does so by the underlying recognition of perfect equality of giver and receiver on which the miracle rests. The miracle shortens time by collapsing it, and thus eliminating certain intervals within it. It does this, however, within the larger temporal sequence. Okay, okay, every time I read this, it's almost like I'm listening to Mr. Spock or somebody. Okay, it gets, I don't know. Sometimes it's like we say in the beginning. The writing, what Helen was writing down from inner dictation, as she would say. Dr. Wapnick says it's as if it was a little rusty in the beginning. Okay, like the water hadn't been turned on in a long time, and so it was still getting rid of some of the rust and the impurities, and the things weren't flowing so smoothly. And this is how I experienced this section. It's a little rough, but let's talk about time. Jesus says, time which really doesn't exist, he says. With the original tiny mad idea, as they say, that I could be separated, I could be separate from God, I could leave the mind of God, I could leave heaven, right? That's the tiny mad idea. When I believed it, right, although it's not true, I totally believed it, and there were immediate consequences, right? And so, as Ken would say, the carpet of time rolled out, right? So all of a sudden, I had sinned, I had done something wrong, I had separated from God, or I believed I did. Right? So I separated from God, that's the sin. I feel horrible about it, right? And that's the guilt. And there's the fear that there's going to be some reprisal. I'm going to get, somebody's going to get me. God's going to get me, right? Because I immediately started to project onto my Creator that now He's angry. And so we have sin, guilt, and fear, past, present, and future. The proverbial carpet of time. And that didn't exist until I believed in separation. All right? So what Jesus is telling us is that therefore it really doesn't exist. Okay? And we totally believe it. And to just get up and start arguing with people, well, time doesn't really exist. Unless that's your experience, don't get into that. It's, like, well, my body's not real, things like that. Later on, Jesus will tell you it's an unworthy form of denial, right? Because our experience is that we do believe it. That's what Jesus is telling us. Jesus is telling us, I'm here to help you to get through this, to undo all these beliefs, all right? And we have so many beliefs, so many things are important to us, And he says, I'm here to help you see them differently, right? I'm here to help you see correctly, right? I'm here to help you correct the vision, right? This is what he's talking about. He stands above us and below God. He's the mediator, the bridge, all right? And without that bridge, we'd be kind of stuck here, all right? And we could see our own lives. We could see in the movement of humanity that some people are stuck until they really say that I need help. I need help to get out of this perception that I'm in. This is horrible. All right, and the ego lets you have a little fun every now and then, just to keep you interested, But basically, there comes a time when you say, well, as Ken would say, can you say help? And I reach out my hand, metaphorically, and ask for help. Jesus is the help, right? Jesus is the symbol of help that we use in the Course. Right? We're not going around converting the masses, telling them everybody's got to believe in the Jesus of the Course. You know, don't do that. You know, you might happen to like peanut butter and jelly, but you can't go around telling everybody to eat peanut butter and jelly. Okay? That's I stole that from Larry David. And I used a different food. Okay. All right. So just another sentence here. It says, revelation is not reciprocal. All right. In other words, the song comes from the Father. The love comes from the Creator. All right. And we, as the created, receive it. All right. We didn't create ourselves. And then Jesus says the miracle substitutes for learning that may have taken 1,000 years. Right? And in the Course, we'll hear that phrase 1,000 years a couple times more, or the number 1,000. It's like saying, many years, many, many years, many years. All right? I was just listening to a talk given by Pema Chodron, and she's talking about millions of lifetimes until you get it. Of course, that's a little, I guess she's joking, but she was laughing. But it's just, to give you the impression that time, in our imaginations, in our mind, our way of thinking, it goes on forever, right? And Jesus is telling you, when you join with me, join with the right mind, as the Course would say, that collapses time. It collapses everything. I mean, even a man like Eckhart Tolle would tell you, now, it's now, right? And in the now, in the present moment, there is no time, right? It just disappears, it fades away, right? And we spend however long an interval we spend in that right mind, right, then we find ourselves, we're back here, right? And you still have to, take a shower, make your bed, get dressed. If you work, you got to go out and do your job, all right? So we have to tend to things, as Ken will always say, be normal. Be normal. All right. Ken coined the term, and I just remembered it. He used to, some people would get into reading the Course and, go flitting around, I am not a body, I am free, and that would be their response to everything. And, quoting the Course, as if you could go to a sick friend and say, well, sickness is just a defense against the truth. And that's a very unkind thing to say to someone. All right? And Ken had a term for the people who call them bliss ninnies. Okay? And he always, just be normal. Be normal. And when you find yourself reacting to something, you find yourself in some kind of distress, or you're ill at ease, or something, you know now that you can go and ask for help. All right? There is a higher self. There is the abundance of the universe. All right? And in the Course in Miracles, we use the symbol of Jesus. Jesus as our brother, our older brother. All right? And say, help me. Help me to see this correctly, whatever situation. And there's no order of difficulty. Remember the first miracle principle. There's no order of difficulty in miracles. Right? Because if I am interpreting, suppose I get on the bus and there's, there's a lot of young children in the back, and they're all making noise, and they're laughing and screaming and yelling. Depending on my state of mind, I can interpret that. I can get annoyed, I can get angry, or I can sit there smiling, just knowing that these are little innocent human beings having a good time. Right? But if I become aware of the fact that, these kids are annoying me, they shouldn't be, their parents should tell them to be quiet, use their indoor voices, whatever, So I'm having a reaction. I'm having a negative reaction. I mean, do I want that? I mean, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be like this for the next however long I'm on the bus, 15, 20 minutes? Do I want to be annoyed? Or if it's the M9 an hour? Do I want to be annoyed for an hour? Or do I want to see things differently? All right? I don't know what peace of mind looks like. All I need to know is that I'm willing to experience it. I'm willing to experience it, and I'm willing for everyone to experience it. You can't exclude people. You can't exclude. Because the moment you exclude, you've excluded yourself, really. Think about it. Because you are me, and I am you. So I can't exclude you. Right? I just tell Jesus, look, Jesus, I'm sitting on the bus. I'd rather be happy. Can you help me? All right? And I'd rather everybody be happy on the bus too. And that's what the miracle does. All right? And it says it substitutes for learning that might have taken 1,000 years. It might have taken a longer time. Just that now I've expressed my willingness to have my perception changed. And so my perception will be changed. Right? Instead of getting up from the chair and running in through the hall and smacking my head into the wall, and doing that for 10 years. He says, until after 10 years goes by and you go, wow, maybe there's something else I could do. That hurts. So Jesus says, okay, let me save you that 10 years, Let me help you change your mind about jumping up and running down the hall. Let me show you, let me help you see it for what it is, okay? Whatever it is. Right? It saves time, okay? And he says it does this, however, within the larger temporal sequence. Right? Sounds like a cool sentence, like a very astute sentence. And it is, because it's coming through Helen Schuckman, and she was an extremely intelligent person, extremely logical, and all those things. She loved the King James Bible, although she constantly professed to be an atheist. She did like the King James Bible, right? And she had a feeling that she had known this figure of Jesus somewhere along the line. So she wasn't afraid of Jesus. Right? That's how she could allow that contact with her higher self, her right mind, right? Getting closer and closer to revelation, right? And the part of us that is ego is fearful of that. So she could accept Jesus as an older brother, a friend, all right? And I would suggest that you develop that kind of relationship with Jesus. He says, don't put me on a pedestal. You don't have to be in awe of me, he says, right? Because I'm the same as you. The only thing is, I chose to leave the ego thought system behind, all right? I looked at it, and I said, no, thank you, right? And that was the part of our mind that said, no, I don't believe I separated from God, all right? So that part of our mind is always there for us to access, right? And in the Course in Miracles, we use the symbol Jesus. And the term Holy Spirit, right? And Jesus will say, I'm the manifestation of the Holy Spirit. So it's basically the same idea. That part of the mind that didn't separate from God, all right? We bring that with us into this experience, into this dream, as Jesus would call it. All righty then. Yeah, so he says, the miracle minimizes the need for time, right? And it helps us to recognize the equality, right? We're all equal, right? No matter how many times we have to apply to each individual situation, sooner or later we'll be able to generalize and realize that the members of the sonship, which is everything, that there's an equality about it, right? There's no hierarchies, right? There's no differences, right? And I think, on that note, we'll end this section, right? And we'll say goodbye until next time, and I'm going to go fishing around for the remote control. And I think I found it. All right then. Thank you for being here. All right. And see you next time. Okay.